This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night, so call in your questions on anything from storm damage to car accidents. Maybe you've got questions about a medical mistake. Maybe you've got a question about a family law issue, divorce. Call in the 31 Law Call number 256-536-0077. You can call in and be live on the air, or you can text to that same number, and we have some of your text ready for tonight. You can also email a legal question any day of the week on any legal topic. You send it to LawCall at waytv.com, and when we get to a show that has something on point with some of your questions, we pull out some of your emails, and we've got some of those for you tonight. William Meserve joins me from Timberlake League and Brooks. Good to have you here.
Glad to be here.
So we survived the storms.
We sure did, and we had sort of a beautiful day.
Today was perfect.
Yeah.
Today was making us think of spring.
It was.
So call in on any legal topic, and while we're getting some phone calls logged in, we have got some video for you. We like to pull something and let you make the law call. Are you familiar with skate parks? Okay, so if you're golfing, you might yell 4. If you're cutting timber, you might yell, if you're lumberjacking, yell timber. But if you're doing some kind of sporting event like this,
I know the answer to this, Sharon.
What's the answer?
I took my kids to the skate park in Huntsville this afternoon, which is a great place here in town. And I heard a lot of people saying, dropping in.
So that's what you yell.
They say dropping in when they're headed down the ramp. So here, this appears to be, some sort of skate park facility where A, you will have likely signed a waiver.
Okay. B,
there's likely an assumption of the risk for being in the skate park, walking the ledge like he was.
Okay.
But perhaps some negligence on behalf of the individual skating down.
Okay.
If he didn't make sure the path was clear.
Okay.
And I don't know what he did, but he sure went flying.
Yeah.
So, in Alabama, it's a contributory negligent state. So if you contribute to the cause of your injury, no matter how slight, you're barred from recovery. So, if the one individual who was walking the ledge was found to be contributory negligent, he would be barred from recovery. But when it comes to these type of parks, these indoor parks, trampoline parks, indoor skate parks, these waivers come up a lot. And waivers in and of themselves can be something where you waive your right to bring a case against the owner of the facility should you be injured there. But that can only happen for an adult. So, it's very common.
They want you to sign. They just say, sign right here for your child.
For your child, right? And that's unenforceable in the state of Alabama. Okay. You cannot sign away the legal rights of your children. Now, a lot of these facilities use those as sort of an attendance record, right? So if you were to allege that your child was injured at the park that day, they're going to go back and look for those waivers, and they're going to say, hey, look, you signed this waiver.
Yeah.
It's a deterrent for you to contact an attorney or something else. And just because someone is injured doesn't mean necessarily that there's liability there on behalf of the facility. You still have to prove that they were somehow negligent, failed to provide proper safety equipment or proper safety rules, or failed to enforce the rules, and that led to the injury itself. So, for a child who's injured at one of these places, they may still have a legal right, even if their parents signed a waiver on their behalf.
So go talk to somebody. Okay, sports in general, though, if you are playing the sport and you get hurt playing the sport, you've assumed the risk?
That's typically going to be an assumption of the risk.
Okay.
Now, if it was done intentionally, that can be different, right? Because you can have intentional torts. And a tort is just a legal harm. So in the civil world, where we're trying to recover monetary damages for an individual, we call those torts. But some of those overlap with the things that you see in the criminal court system. So, for example, assault and battery. Those you're probably familiar with for the viewers for having, watched any sort of criminal TV show. But that can exist over on the civil side as well. Now, intentional torts are typically not going to be covered by insurance.
Okay.
And so they can become very difficult to recover. But oftentimes in fights, if someone sucker punches someone, something along those lines, that can be an intentional tort for which an individual can make a recovery. But the individual that you're going after has to have some sort of money or assets or something else for you to pursue.
We've got callers waiting. We've got Buddy on the line with a question from Gurley. Hi, Buddy. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I had like in my divorce, I paid my wife $25,000.
Okay.
Okay, I was supposed to have got a quit claim deed when I turned over her the $25,000.
Right.
But I've never received a quit claim deed.
Okay, have you drawn one up? Sometimes the divorce papers will say that either the husband or the wife or their lawyer will be responsible for doing that quit claim deed. Did it assign it to anybody?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you need to draw one up. Do you know where to reach your ex-wife? Have a quit claim deed drawn up, give it to her, tell her that you need her to sign it. If she doesn't sign it, there are ways for you to contact the clerk of court, and the clerk can actually sign off on a deed. If the divorce is very, very clear that you were to do such and such, and you've got proof that you did it, then the clerk, he himself or herself could sign off on a clerk's deed and take care of that for you. But be sure that you have actually done the deed and you've presented it to your ex-wife to give her the chance, and then if she won't, take further steps. Okay? We have some email questions that came in. This one, in a neighborhood Facebook group, a parent was asking about a specific child care center in the area and for recommendations. Well, I posted about an incident that they had there several years ago where a staff member hurt a child, and I included the news link. I received a message the next day threatening legal action if I don't take my post down. Do I have to take my post down? Could they really sue me over this? And that's from Sherry. What do you think about that?
So these sort of cease and desist letters that companies often send out, oftentimes are scare tactics, right? And so there's an old saying that the truth shall set you free, right? And if it is a true statement that you have made, then there cannot be any what we call defamation, okay? So defamation is essentially where you tell an untruth about someone, and it can be about a company, and you tell that untruth in a public setting, and and they have to have damage to their reputation as a result of it. So, if it is a fully true statement that you've made, and oftentimes people make this mistake where they embellish a fact, or they, say something that is mostly true or they think is true, but maybe they've, connected a couple of the dots that they don't have the information for, then it could still potentially be defamation. Okay. So you need to be very careful about what you say and how you say it. Now, even if what you have said is completely true, her question at the end was, can they still sue me? And the answer to that is yes. Right?
Because they can sue for anything, right?
They can sue for anything. Now, if it's totally, out of left field, a judge is going to throw that right out.
Yeah.
But if it's a close call, you're going to have to try to defend that case, and you're going to have to pay for a lawyer, and you're going to have to go through, a bunch of steps. Yeah. So, the short answer to it is, if you've told the truth and nothing but the truth, you should be in pretty good shape. But there are certain circumstances where you can't divulge that something has happened. So, for example, if this was your own child who was injured, and you reached some sort of agreement with the daycare facility, and they said, look, we're going to go ahead and pay for your child's medical bills, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you're going to sign this release, releasing us from any and all liability for future treatment or anything else. A lot of those have a confidentiality agreement in them. And that confidentiality agreement could perhaps say, look, you're not supposed to go talk about this.
Even though it was true.
Right.
Or you assume it was true.
But there's some rules about that and how they can enforce it and what they can recover against you, but there could be some form of a monetary penalty involved.
Okay. We've got Sherry on the line with a question from Section. Hi, Sherry. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight? Hey, Sherry, are you with us? There you are. What's your question tonight?
If someone runs a red light and hits you in an automobile, how can you find out if they were texting or speeding?
Sure. So, fair question. There are ways to do that. It's typically going to involve a lawyer. It's going to involve a lawsuit, and it's going to involve some different subpoenas. Your lawyer can subpoena the cell phone records of the other driver. And from those cell phone records, They can't see what they were texting, but they can see when any text messages were sent or received. And so you can sort of extrapolate from the time on the accident report versus the time on the cell phone records of when these text messages were going in and out. And a lot of times they'll also include data usage. Now, data usage can be a more difficult variable to try and really figure out what it means, because so many of these apps run in the background. And so you can be doing nothing and still be using data. And that's typically going to involve some sort of cell phone expert to try to decipher, you know, was the level of data being used indicative of the individual using their cell phone while driving, or was it, you know, most likely related to background apps or these apps that run even when your phone is in the cup holder. Your other question of can you find out if the other driver was speeding, the answer to that is if they were in a more modern automobile.
Okay.
So most modern automobiles have a computer similar to what we might think of as maybe a black box in an airplane. And these computers store data typically for 5 to 10 seconds leading up to the impact. And so you can extrapolate from that, you know, what the speed was prior to impact, when the brakes were applied, different things along those lines. Again, that's going to require an expert to both download and then interpret the data. So the short answer to it is yes, it can be done. What you didn't hear me say is how much all that costs.
Yeah, that's
right?
going to cost some money.
If we're talking about a situation where, look, you know, no one was really hurt here, you're not going to find a lawyer that's going to go spend that money, hire those experts, and try to put that case together. You know, but if you're talking about a situation where someone was injured or catastrophically injured, certainly, you know, a lawyer's going to go through all those steps to try and sort out and determine, you know, who's at fault and why. Another thing that a lot of people don't think about is video footage. And sometimes people have dash cams. I'm involved in a case right now where we called all the different witnesses who were involved in the wreck, and one of those witnesses was driving a truck for a corporate company, and it had a dash cam, and you can see the actual accident on the dash cam. Now it involved a subpoena to try to get that dash cam footage. But that can be done. Also, lots of times gas stations, if it's a more rural road and people have these Ring doorbell cameras, sometimes these pick these things up. But it requires a couple things. You know, we see these TV shows, these criminal TV shows, and a crime happens and the police come out, and the first thing they do is they put up the yellow tape, and they tape off the crime scene, and they put up the little placards, and they take photographs, and they gather the evidence, and they put it in the little baggies, and they do all these things, right? But, you know, if you fall in a store or you have a car accident, you know, there's no one running out there and taping off the scene and gathering up this evidence. So a lot of times, you know, if it is a situation where liability is disputed or someone is seriously injured, it is important to contact a lawyer early on. That lawyer can determine whether or not, hey, we need to run out and kind of set up a crime scene and you know, measure these tire marks before the rain washes them away, and all these different things, you know. The police don't necessarily always clean up accident scenes. So a lot of times there's debris on the side of the road, bumpers, different things, and you can sort out where the accident exactly occurred on the roadway. So there's a lot that goes into accident scene investigation and how we handle those, you know, but it's done sort of on a case-by-case basis.
You've then got to get that video or that information in, right? So you've got to have the right people show up for court to be able to get that video played and to authenticate that that is what it says it is, and it was the right day and right time.
Absolutely.
So that's more work. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. If you're on the line, stay on the line. We'll be answering anything straight ahead.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, attorney Heath Brooks, attorney William Meservey, and hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back tonight. It's Ask Us Anything night, so folks are calling in and texting in to ask us all kinds of legal questions. William Meservey is here from Timberlake, Lee & Brooks, and we've got Jeff on the line with a question from Madison County. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for waiting. What's your question tonight?
Thanks for taking my call. Sure. Excellent show as always.
Thank you.
A lot of people, it happened to me last year, and I had to change insurance. They're getting these emails from their homeowner's insurance saying if your roof is over 10 years old and not been replaced, that they will cancel you unless you replace it. I had no claims except for 2011, had the roof replaced, called a roofer that I know. He inspected the roof, said there's no way anyone would anyone from the insurance company would approve a roof, so I had to go to a complete different insurance. What is going on with the insurance companies? Because I called the state of Alabama insurance commissioner, no help whatsoever.
Okay.
Please explain what's going on.
Very
Thank you
interesting.
for all y'all do.
Yeah. Have
Sure.
you heard of that before?
I have, and you can see it on a much bigger spectrum if you look at some of our neighboring states like Florida.
Yeah.
Right? And they've had such catastrophic damage with floods from hurricanes, roofs ripped off from hurricanes, that a lot of times, folks can't even find homeowners insurance to the point where the states had to start providing it in certain instances. But you have to remember that when you enter into an agreement for insurance, it is a contract, right? And that contract is for a set period of time. And so when that contract ends, typically it's going to be a 6-month or a 1-year contract of insurance. And a lot of times we don't even notice because we have it on auto renew. But essentially, they can change the terms, right? And where we typically see that is in the raising of rates. So typically rates may go up over a geographic region due to, storm claims or other things. But they can also change different terms and decide they don't want to cover you anymore. And so it can happen, and we do see it most often with roofs. And some of that may be due to the materials and advancements that have been made in the materials. But there's not necessarily, a great explanation for it other than they're looking at the data, right? And then sometimes when that roof ages, it can become a closer call if there's hail damage or if there's some wind damage in deciphering whether that wind or hail damage has come from, slow damage over time, or if it's from the storm that just passed by. And with a lot of these insurances that you buy over the internet, they don't have local adjusters who are going to come out and inspect that roof, or are going to come out and assess the storm damage. And they have to hire third-party adjusters to come in, which is an independent company, and that can be costly on their end. And so sometimes they just say, look, these folks live down in Tornado Alley, and, there's all these roof claims all the time, and it's just more than we want to sort out, so we're going to, make this arbitrary rule. Well, there's, when they bring this to you and it's at the end of this contract term, there's nothing saying that you have to stay with them.
And it sounds like Jeff had no trouble finding another company to take him on.
So you can go sort that out, and you can go price other companies.
Wow.
And, I think sort of for most insurance companies these days, sort of gone are the days of you've been a loyal 25-year customer. They don't really seem.
That seems like such bad business.
There's still a couple insurance companies that do seem to care more about that. But for the vast majority, they love the people that have been with them for 25 years and never had a claim.
That just seems crazy that Jeff's been a customer, a good customer the whole time, but they'd rather let him go.
It happens.
Okay, we got this text question in. I live in Morgan County. A neighbor's tree that has a base on his or her property, but the tree is leaning toward my property and about 60% overhang on my property. If the tree falls on my property, is the neighbor liable? What do we do with these tree questions? And a lot of storm damage out there for people to start thinking about this.
The neighbor is not liable unless that tree is diseased, rotted, or dead in some form or fashion, and the neighbor has knowledge of it. And so there's sort of an answer on paper to this question, and then there's the answer I typically give people. So let's start with the answer on paper. The answer on paper is your property is not just the land, it is also the airspace above your land, up to a certain height, right? And so, you know, you can't trespass an airplane for flying over your property.
Right.
But you can simply go out and trim all the branches that are hanging off onto your property.
Okay.
Now, that is not my recommended approach because that does not tend to make good neighbors or friendly neighbors. So it's always best to first, you know, just confront the neighbor and say, look, hey, you've got this tree on your property and it's coming over on mine, and, you know, it's dropping pecans on my car, or it's doing this, that, or the other. Or I'm worried that the branches are going to fall and damage my outhouse or whatever that may be, you know, my shed. And, you know, if that's the case, you know, try to come to a solution that works for both of you, and you can kind of maintain that neighborly, you know, way of comporting with each other. But, you know, if that fails, and believe it or not, we've been involved in a lawsuit over this before.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Neighbors fighting over the trees.
Neighbors fighting over the trees. And, you know, we've had to take it to court before, which is sort of absurd. But
do you call the other neighbors? The whole neighborhood's coming in?
You know, it does tend to... It does tend to bring the whole neighborhood in just out of gossip and curiosity, if nothing else. But, you know, it's important to maintain those relationships with your neighbors. But at the end of the day, you know, you can hire someone to cut those branches.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night. Stay with us. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with William Meservey with Timberlake League and Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com. And if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way. And I do family law, divorce, child custody, 256-539-7337. Also check out SharonFamilyLaw.com. So much storm damage around, some things to, don't be surprised if what?
Well, so your homeowner's insurance is going to cover you for wind and hail and trees falling on your structure, typically, but it's not going to cover flood or earthquake. And so a lot of people don't know this, but you have to purchase flood insurance through FEMA. It's not purchased through your homeowners. The contents coverage for the sofa, the TV, your wardrobe, all of that is covered for flood under your homeowners.
Okay, so get ready. If you're going to have any storm damage, consider having read that contract and see if you need something extra.
Good to know.
Thanks for all your calls and questions tonight. We'll see you next week.